Welcome back to Constructing the Carolinas, the show where we explore the people, policies, and projects shaping the future of North Carolina. This podcast is brought to you by Barnhill, shaping the Carolinas since 1949. I'm your host, Valerie Bono, Director of Business Development. Today, we're diving into the dynamic world of commercial real estate with Brandt Berry, Senior Associate at Cushman Wakefield. Based in Raleigh-Durham, Brandt specializes in sale of office, industrial, retail, and flex properties throughout the Triangle region. In this episode, Brandt shares his journey into commercial real estate, the current trends shaping the market, and how adaptability and creativity are essential in navigating today's economic landscape. We'll discuss the nuances of buyer and seller dynamics, their increasing popularity of sale-leasebacks, and what companies should consider before making their next move. Whether you're involved in development, real estate, or simply interested in how our communities evolve, this conversation offers valuable insights. Well, Brandt, welcome to Constructing the Carolinas. I'm really thankful to be sitting down with you today and excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, of course.
So I want to dive into your background a little bit, and a fun fact just for our listeners. It turns out that we both actually graduated from the Cushman School of Journalism at Carolina, which is such a small world because in construction and also probably real estate, there aren't a lot of us.
Yeah, you'd think we'd be state grads.
That's right. So yeah, just tell us about your background and what made you end up where you are today.
Yeah, it's a winding road. I think everybody in real estate has their own story and winding road. No one in my family was in real estate. So my major, like you said, journalism, I went to Chapel Hill and wanted to do broadcast journalism. So the plan from probably when I was about, 10 or 12 years old was to try to be a sports broadcaster, like Jim Nance, Bob Costas, somebody like that. I set my sights high.
Yeah, set the bar high. I love it.
Yeah. And so, attended Chapel Hill, got into the journalism school, was in the sports broadcasting track, really enjoyed it. And then kind of the farther into my undergrad career that I began to realize that I enjoyed what I was doing. I just didn't think it was the right fit. It didn't seem, based on conversations I had with people in the professional world. And as you get closer to graduation, you start to piece together what it's like to do that job in the real world. So there was specifically an internship that I had between my junior and my senior year with Red Bull. That it wasn't sports broadcasting per se, but it was sports marketing, and that led to me deciding that okay, I love sports, but I'm happy to have sports be a hobby and not something that I do to earn income. So at that point, I would have loved to say I pivoted immediately to real estate and then blast off, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I graduated from Chapel Hill. I took a job doing campus ministry at a ministry called the North Carolina Study Center. That's right there near campus. So did that for 2 years. Then finished that. Still didn't know what I wanted to do. And got a job doing digital marketing around the Triangle. And from there, I graduated in May 2017, took that job in summer 2019, and then COVID hits. And then COVID shakes everything up.
Oh my goodness.
I had already been probably thinking at that point about, is this digital marketing job? At that point, I needed a job. I was 24. I needed some place to work and pay the bills and eventually have health insurance. And I needed a place to start. So was working there. COVID hits. I got furloughed. And it was during that furlough process that I started to look into graduate schools, because at that point I kind of took it was COVID, so we were all at home, we're sheltering in place, and I was furloughed, and so I had nothing to do. So I got to consider the question of, okay, I'm not using my major directly. Do I need to go back to school to do what I want to do? And so I started to essentially just talk to anybody who was doing something interesting, which was really it was kind of like cold calling people. And it was family, friends, essentially anybody who was kind enough to take a moment to talk to me and share a little bit about what their job is. Did they enjoy it? And what are I think personality traits and natural giftings that they have that are a good fit there. So it was through that I started to look into real estate development school. Because I remember talking to a family friend who was a real estate developer up in Charlottesville, Virginia, where I'm from, and it just sounded really cool. There was nothing beyond that. I mean, constructing the Carolinas. So I feel like I'm getting company.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you probably think building buildings is very cool.
Oh, very cool.
Right. And so that led to considering real estate development grad schools, looked into Clemson, looked into UNC, and potentially getting my MBA at Keenan Flagler and having a focus within real estate. But I didn't want to go to graduate school without having any experience professionally in the real estate world. So at that point, got my broker's license, got my real estate license, and started calling anybody with a commercial real estate firm to see if I could get a start. Because I didn't have the resume to get a job at a real estate developer. So again, wanted to show that I was interested enough to get my real estate license and to start doing brokerage. So put myself out there. Eventually, at this point, I was in Colorado, and there was a brokerage in Denver that is actually a crazy story. I was living in Colorado Springs at the time.
Okay.
I had a friend who was in town visiting, and he needed a ride to the airport in Denver. So gave him a ride to Denver. And I was interviewing with a commercial real estate brokerage down in Colorado Springs. Okay. And part of the interview process for me was because at this point I had no sales experience, no cold calling experience, nothing. And they told me cold calling is going to be a big part of what you do. So show us that you can do that. They challenged me to get in touch with 10 owners of commercial property in a week.
Oh my goodness.
And they were just like, yeah, just go do it. And let us know what happens when you do it. And so it was on this day, that was like on a Tuesday when they told me that. And then that week, like Wednesday or Thursday, I'm up there in Denver. And I'm like, well, Denver has property. Like, I'm just going to drive around and see what happens. And so there was a property that had a fence around it, like vacant land, and just looked interesting. Like it looked like something was going to happen there. So I, look up the property owner information, find a number, call it. And it turns out that owner who I called owns his own commercial real estate brokerage in Denver. And so he picked up the phone and he said, hello. I'm like, yep, this is Brandt Berry. And it was the weirdest cold calls that you can ever experience. Cause like I had nothing to offer. And he said, oh yeah, like you should just come interview with me and we'll see what happens. And so I interviewed with them and they offered me a job. And that was my first commercial brokerage job.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It was very happenstance.
Right. And what I've learned with commercial real estate, folks like yourself, like you have to have that will, right? And that want, and you have to be a go-getter and persevere and do the cold calling. And it's just, to some people, they're like, oh, that sounds terrible, but that's probably what gets you excited, right? It seems like you probably thrive in that space.
It was probably within the first, and I started that job my first brokerage job was in January 2021. It was probably within the first, I still remember being just terrified of my first call because I was scared that the person on the other end I was gonna say, hey, did you know that this building next to you just sold two weeks ago? And they were gonna say, how do you know that? Like, what gives you why is that important? Talk to me. And they would probably grill me and I'd have to say like, I'm just starting this. I can't believe it.
It's almost like you're a detective, right? You're doing
you
a lot.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, you really are. I think curiosity helps a lot. But I think it was after about probably 2 or 3 weeks of doing that, I realized that this is not as painful for me to do as it is for other people. And it's been a ride ever since then, for sure.
Yeah. And so now, fast forward, you're at Cushman Wakefield.
That's right.
Incredible firm. We have had the privilege of working with them, for them. Love everything about Cushman. And so I'm really glad to spotlight you today and dive in what you're seeing during a very uncertain time. So it's interesting. Yeah, we're going to talk about capital markets. And if ever there was an unpredictable time for us, it's today.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I'm really curious, Cushman, right? Huge player in the commercial real estate space. How does your team support businesses in navigating some of these challenges, maybe these uncertainties? What are you all doing? What are you seeing right now?
Praying. No. So my role at Cushman Wakefield, I'm on the capital markets team, and specifically the asset type and type of product that I'm focusing on is it's deals that are $10 million and under. So this space, some people refer to it as a small cap deal, private capital, sub-institutional. There's many different names to refer to it as. But that's the deal size that I focus on. It would be anything that's $10 million and under. And then the asset types are office, industrial, land, and retail. So essentially anything that's not an apartment building.
Sure.
And yeah, so what we provide to our clients is we provide advisory services. So the primary way that I serve my clients is I have a client who owns a piece of real estate and they need to sell it. And they would like to sell it, whether that's they're an investor who has the life cycle of their investment has run its course and they're ready to sell and to find another investment, or if it's a business who needs to dispose of their property. We list property. We provide, again, advisory for clients on how to efficiently and wisely manage their portfolios, and which is always a question, I think, in every business's minds. But that's really the bread and butter of what we do is I help people sell their properties, and I also help people buy properties as well, and represent buyers and purchase of properties. But oftentimes some people have their own advisory teams, but if there's a chance to represent buyers as well, that's what I do. I help people buy and sell property.
I would imagine that people are coming to you for advice right now, and I'm just curious, how do you even answer that? Is it like, do you sit tight until there's some more certainty, or do you get aggressive now because the reward after this uncertainty could be significantly greater? I don't know.
Yeah. It depends who you are. If you are a seller, it's not a good market to sell in right now. So if you have the ability to wait to sell, then you should wait. It doesn't make sense to test the market right now because it's not a good time to test the market. The fundamentals aren't there. Banks are slower to lend. There's, like we were talking about, uncertainty. So there's not as many buyers who are showing up to the table. And the buyers who are showing up, because banks are tighter with their lending right now, they're probably going to be more cash buyers who are going to demand a premium and a discount on the price that they're paying because they're paying all cash. So that would be advice to sellers is, like what is your, and it's different if you're a business versus if you're an investor, but broadly it would be, okay, do you want to sell? You do. Let's talk about that. Is there a way we could wait 2 years, maybe 2 or 3 years? So that would be advice for sellers. But buyers, I think uncertainty creates opportunity. Mm-hmm. I think Warren Buffett is one of I would say, most well-known and successful investor of the modern era. Yeah. And I think he preaches being greedy when others are fearful. And so I think there is opportunity as a buyer. If you can, it's going to be difficult to identify opportunity and to see if you can execute and get a transaction at the closing table. But if you can do that, then it's a great time to be buying right now. I think the difficult thing is that there's a lack of deals to transact on because, to the first point, it's not a good time to sell. So the opportunities are fewer than there were 3 or 4 years ago. I think 2021 and back half of 2021 and 2022 were strong. Kind of emerging from COVID when interest rates were still low. And then I think we're still in, I won't get into projecting and having a firm start and a firm end of what cycle we're in. But since interest rates have hiked, I think we're still in some semblance of that cycle. Absolutely.
And we were just listening to a panel yesterday, ironically, where they were talking about this uncertainty. And, we heard stay in the mix until 2026. Now the latest is wait until 2028. So there's still that whole...
Yeah, it's interesting. I think my thought is if you go along with what everyone else is doing, then you might be lacking direction yourself to know what you're doing. So I think if you're waiting around for somebody else to move before you move, then you're going to be second in line or third in line. So I think, I think that's the hard thing is in the real estate market is not necessarily linear all the time. So I think if you can still identify opportunity and source deals, then you're still going to execute. Yeah. It's hard to find deals.
Yeah. I'm curious. I would imagine, so you mentioned that you focus on 10 million and under. I would imagine that the deals you're seeing have probably increased, especially as when people are looking at office space, they're looking at a smaller footprint. Do you think that's true? Like, do you feel like you're seeing more deals come through in the smaller footprint spaces?
I think this is where, And it's not exactly 10 million is the purchase price at which you start to see dynamics shift. But I think once you start getting to a smaller deal size, people are going to sell for reasons that are disconnected from a financial decision. Like, you're going to sell because taxes are too high and you want to stop paying taxes and you'd rather have your money in something else. There might be a death in the family and the property is passed to some heirs and it's split in a variety of ways. And so it's easier and everybody would prefer to sell and everybody goes their own way rather than holding a property that is held between 6 or 7 different individuals. So I think, and that can still happen with larger properties, but once you get into smaller property sizes, situations like that are more common. And there's also a larger supply of properties that exist. So there's just going to be there's a larger pie. Yeah. I guess we're doing a lot of pie analogies today, but there's going to be a larger pie that you can have to get a slice from. So I think the velocity of these transactions is typically quicker. They're less connected to in lockstep with the financing of larger capital markets deals, because it's easier. It's an easier pill to swallow to lend on there's going to be more banks who want to show up and lend on a $2 million asset than there would be right now, at least on like a $20 million office deal, because your risk is lower.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So we talked about selling a little bit, but I want to pick your brain about leasebacks. So sale-leasebacks, this is a strategy that's become critical tool for companies that are looking specifically to unlock capital. And so I'd love to see what you can explain to us with the basics of how a sale-leaseback works.
So a sale-leaseback involves 2 things, as the name would suggest: a sale of the property, and then the company who formerly owned the property and sold it leases back and signs a lease from the new owner. So that's simply what it is. I think in practice, the 2 most common ways I see that happening are it's either a longer term lease, like you would have, I think Ready Ice just sold 2 buildings or they sold a national portfolio to a group called WP Carey, who's a net lease investor in New York City. And 2 of those properties are in Raleigh, and they're over there in the Westgate area near the airport. And so they signed a 20-year lease. Okay. So that would be an example of one bucket is the company signs a long-term lease. Okay. And sells to an investor who's typically a net lease investor who's somebody who's searching for single tenant properties like that. I think the alternative, the second way that it would go, you would have either a regional or a local business, one that has 1 location or 2 or 3, they're seeking to sell the business and eventually exit in the next 5 years, but they don't want to sell the business and sell the property at the exact same time, because that kind of that limits your buyer pool. It's rare that you would have somebody come along who is 1, the best buyer for your business, and 2, the best buyer for your real estate as well. But in a situation like that, it would be more common to have the business sign a 36-month lease, so a shorter term, like 2 or 3 years, for somebody to sell the real estate or sell the business, and then they can still hold the real estate, and then they'll sell the real estate at some point down the line. So there's a client that we're helping right now and advising who's evaluating that exact type of decision. Okay, so they'll sell the real estate first, and then it's more typical. A good example would be if you have, I'm just going to use a chiropractor. Let's say he owns his chiropractic business and he also owns the real estate. Yeah. Let's say that he's in his lower 60s. He's like 60, 61. He's happy. Maybe he has a grandkid or 2, and he wants to, take less responsibility in his life. He doesn't want to show up to the office as much, but he still wants to be involved in the business. A good way to monetize or have an exit event can be sell the business first. So it would typically be sell the business first and then stay on the payroll of the business. But then the business would lease back from, in this example, the chiropractor who still owns the building that his former practice now owned by somebody else, leases back from him.
Yeah. So that's a great example. And it's actually a good segue into the next question. So like, are there trends of types of businesses that you see utilize sale-leasebacks? You know, you mentioned chiropractor. Is it kind of all over?
It is all over the place. I think I was looking up before I got here, because how many there's currently on the market today, as a trivia question for you. There are 146 properties actively listed that are $1 million or above and are not a piece of land. So this is excluding multifamily, excluding land. There are 146 of them on the market right now. How many of those do you think are being marketed as sale-leasebacks?
Gosh, you put me on the spot. I have no idea. 20?
2.
2. Oh, okay.
So it's rare.
Yes.
I would say right now it's rare.
Okay.
And the reason it's rare is because it's just interest rates and cap rates are kind of at the same level. There was a point there probably a couple years ago where there was a disconnect. There was a spread of where a bank would lend you money at and where cap rates were at. And so at that point, it becomes a simple calculation of, well, if I'm a lighting manufacturer and I want to expand my building or expand my business, the way to expand that is I'm going to have to spend money to do that. Where's the money going to come from? It's either going to be coming from a lender, coming from raising funds from investors, or you can sell your real estate at a cap rate, and maybe an industrial cap rate probably 2 or 3 years ago. And maybe even some today, depending on the credit of the tenant, would be in the 5% range. Essentially, if you can get a better interest rate on if the rate of your cap rate would be better than a rate that you could get from a lender, then it becomes worthwhile to consider monetizing your real estate in that way.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense.
It's just a way to access capital.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are considering that, right? Like, okay, let's get the capital. Cash is king.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I'm curious, with the current economic environment and where we are today, and when this podcast releases, things can be completely turned upside down.
They probably will.
Yes, they will. But I'm curious, right now, high interest rates, inflation, are you seeing an increased interest in sale-leasebacks? I know you mentioned there's only 2 of the 146. Or do you think that there's going to be even fewer?
I think there will be more as we go forward. I think as the sales market improves, not only for real estate, but as you kind of, to use that example I used before of a chiropractor, anybody who owns their business, who's considering selling that business, as the market improves for selling anything, I think there will be more sale-leasebacks. So right now it's a down market to sell into. So as the market increases and improves over the next 2, 3, 4 years, then there will be, more sale-leasebacks too that exist. Yeah. So I expect there to be more. Yeah. Like maybe when I come back in 2 or 3 years, we can do the same exercise and we can see how many active listings on the market are there, how many of them are sale-leasebacks. Yeah. And so the number to beat would be 2 out of 146. Okay. Well, I'm going to hold you to that, and we'll make you a friend of the podcast. You could come back on. That would be amazing. Deal. We've got that on tape. Okay, so shifting gears, let's talk about build-to-suit projects. What are the key advantages of this approach for businesses compared to traditional leasing or perhaps purchasing existing space? Well, for comparing to purchasing existing space, if you purchase an existing space, you're going to need to make modifications to it. Yeah. Which you should call Barnhill to make modifications, right? Any tenant sit-ups, anything like that, we're your company. Yeah, making modifications is costly. It slows the process down. And then by the time that you have finished an acquisition and the cost to make modifications, it might exceed the price that you would have paid, and it might not even be exactly what you want. What works for your business. So I would say a build to suit appeals to, I think it mainly appeals to the majority of the build to suits that I'm seeing are for retail tenants. A couple examples would be Fifth Third Bank. There's a lot of Fifth Third Banks that are expanding. They have a look. They know exactly what they want to build. They know exactly what square footage they have, parking, all that. Dollar General as well. And then you have a Dutch Bros. They're coming into the market. Drive-through coffee. Okay. Coffee retailer.
Interesting. I've not seen
I know
that.
them from Colorado.
Okay,
so
cool.
when they come here, it's essentially the whole restaurant is frappuccinos.
Okay, well, that sounds amazing.
Frozen and blended coffee restaurant.
Maybe they will drive Starbucks costs down.
Hopefully. We'll see. At least the line can get shorter.
Yeah.
That's typically, retail tenants are typically who you'll see doing a build-to-suit. That's not to exclude and say there's no industrial build-to-suits. But typically it would be a business or a brand that's in growth mode and they want to add 50, 100, 200, whatever the number may be, locations. And they know that they need a specific amount of cars passing by the property. They know they want to be on a corner property or within X distance of a lit and signalized intersection. And they need to have within their whatever radius they choose, a certain minimum amount of population.
Sure.
And they know that their business model works if you give them those criteria. And so I think once you have kind of a wash, rinse, repeat site selection process, then you can apply that same model to building the property. And then it's, do you know Gallup Strengths Finders?
Yeah.
Have you heard of that? Yeah. So it's similar to,
Sure.
like, I think the methodology and the thought of, well, why would you do a build-to-suit is if you're a Chick-fil-A or a Dutch Bros or a Dollar General, like if you're a discount retailer, you're in the retail business.
Yes.
You're not in the real estate business. And your time is going to be better spent doing what you're best at.
Sure.
Rather than pivoting over and doing a general contracting process and being the GC on your own build.
Seeing that too, like the prototypes, right? Even private schools, if they're a franchise and they're building a school, they'll use a prototype. They're not looking for anything outside of the box. This is the same school, rinse and repeat. We're going to do it in multiple locations. But to your point, like doing a feasibility study and what makes it successful, where do I need to be positioned?
Yep.
There's so much planning that goes in on any of these types of projects.
Tons.
Yeah. They don't just happen overnight. I'm curious, in the real estate market, are companies prioritizing build-to-suit right now? Maybe are they looking at it differently today than they were, let's look at COVID times and then pre-COVID. So how does Cushman, how do you support your clients in structuring the deals that go in with build-to-suit so that the deals are ultimately both operationally beneficial for the clients, but also financially meeting the objectives?
The first question that we would dig into would be, does this make sense for you and your business? We would establish reasons why it makes sense and also establish reasons why it might be advantageous to wait until a later time. So we, assuming that it makes sense for this company or our client to pursue a sale-leaseback, the next step would be determining what sort of a lease that they want to sign. So going back to the first time we were talking about sale-leasebacks, do you want to sign a shorter lease or do you want to sign a longer lease? Because the length, the term, the rate, the annual escalations, all of these things will affect the sales price. And so it depends on what sort of a sales price target does this client need to meet to transact, and what kind of a lease do we need to execute to get there?
Yeah.
So it's essentially an extensive leasing analysis, and underwriting and modeling that against trying to exceed a target purchase price.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Sounds like you're doing a lot of discovery to find out what's the best direction for the client, and you're hearing what their needs are, and then you're able to help guide them rather than the opposite, and you're just directing them into what decision they should go in. So I can appreciate that. It seems like I know that's why Cushman's so successful, right? And you continue to have repeat clients.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the way that I think about brokerage is it's a team sport. So you're all on the same team.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I was a basketball player, and so nobody really likes a ball hog who
That's right.
tells people that the way it's going to be.
Yes.
So, ideally you can esse
That trust.
agreement, trust, and move forward towards a successful outcome.
Yeah, I think that's great. We're trying to teach one of my sons right now about, when you're on a team and you're in a team sport, you win as a team and you lose as a team. So you're in it together. So we're at an interesting moment for capital markets in general, right? And we know there's persistent inflation right now. We know there's the higher for longer interest rate environment. So how are these factors influencing real estate investment decisions?
Easy question. um, I think the interest rates and the prime rate established by the Federal Reserve will always impact real estate investing because it impacts lenders
Yep.
and what rates they're willing to extend money at.
Yes.
And so that alone will always impact capital markets because it's directly involved. Like where we're talking to people who are trying to make money and who are borrowing money to do so. So the interest rates will always impact that. So I think right now, dynamics that exist are that due to the rapid rise of interest rates in 2022 and into 2023, it was an unexpected change and something that takes time to sink into and work its way through the market. And so one of the direct ways that we have seen lenders respond is that if you had a note that, let's say you bought a building in 2018 and you borrowed money at 3.5% to do that. Well, your note is due, let's say you had a 5-year payoff. So that's 2023. Now your note's due and your interest rate, the prevailing interest rates are now in the high sixes, maybe low sevens. Drastically changes the value of the building, the value of the asset, the rents that you need to obtain to make your business plan work. So all that to say, the Fed has been, and I think they this week said they raised their projected cuts to, I think, 5 cuts this year from, it was 6 in 1 year, then it was 6 in 2 years. Essentially, this is the reason why there's uncertainty.
Yes.
Is because what has been communicated is changing. And so with all this uncertainty, banks had shown a willingness and they have extended, called extend and pretend would be the trend that we've been seeing, is that banks are more willing to use that 2023 example. If you have a note that's due in 2023, let's say, oh, nobody wants to lose money. So let's extend this note 12 months and come back in 2024 and let's pay it off then, because the interest rates should be better and the capital markets environment should be better to refinance into, because that's what we've been told. That hasn't happened because it's kind of just been an elongated process of hearing that interest rates are going to be cut, and no, wait, interest rates are going to be cut 12 months from now.
Yes.
And so that has delayed this cycle working itself out. And when I say working itself out, I mean working it out in the form of loan payoffs and readjusted asset prices on loans that were assets that were purchased or valued with loans that were simply given at a low interest rate and now need to be refinanced or repurchased at a higher interest rate.
Yes.
So something's got to give.
Something's got to give, for sure. So where is capital currently being deployed in commercial real estate, and how has it changed over perhaps the past year?
I think capital right now is being deployed into trophy assets, and I mean, it's two-sided. It's either being deployed into assets that are the best of the best in a market. I think this would be like Highwoods Properties just bought Advanced Auto Parts Tower. That's a great asset, and then objectively one of the best, if not the best, performing office markets in all of town, North Hills. That's an example of an asset that is trading and that people are investing money into. The opposite end of that would be completely distressed office buildings or assets. This would be, I think, the main distress has been in the office sector. There's also been a small amount of distress in the multifamily sector as well. But that's where capital is going, because you either want to be buying something very opportunistic where you're going to be rewarded for assuming a lot of risk, or you're going to buy something that is so trophy and so clearly the best in the market that your risk is you don't care about the financing.
Yes.
I mean, you do care about the financing, but it's less important because of the quality of what you're buying.
Sure.
So we've seen that with investors. We've seen that with tenants. So I think those are where investors are seeking capital or seeking to place capital. And there's a lot more investors that I talk to that are trying to find deals rather than having too many deals to work on.
Well, that's great to hear. That's a good outlook.
It is a good outlook. It's it kind of goes back to one of the first things we talked about. It's not a good market to sell into, so that shrinks the amount of deals that are available for people to buy. So you're going to have this bottleneck of a lot of people are ready to buy, but there's nothing to buy.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with the real estate market for residential, right? Like there's a demand, but there's not enough supply.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So are there any particular asset classes or geographic markets that are seeing more interest despite the challenges? I know you mentioned, we were talking a little bit about industrial earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, industrial, specifically, at least in Raleigh-Durham, everything that I'm saying is filtered through Raleigh-Durham and the Greater Triangle. But there are a lot of investors who want to have a chance to purchase an industrial asset in the Greater Triangle area. It's a hard thing to pull off, I think, based on, again, inventory. But industrial is one asset class that we've seen a lot of increased interest in, specifically over the last 3 or 4 years since COVID. And there's been a lot of rent growth in the industrial market, specifically in Raleigh-Durham. I think you're seeing that across flex versus pure warehouse and distribution space. So I think people are wanting to get in on that and get in on the rent growth story. And I think with the speed and the development of Raleigh's industrial market compared to, I think Charlotte's a larger industrial market than ours is. And so I think there's going to be a greater chance of rents to grow here because supply is slower to come online. But there's a lot of supply coming online. Right now, I'm on the leasing team for RXR's Viridia development, and we've got 200,000 square foot, 100,000, 113,000 tilt-up construction, brand new buildings. I think there's a few other developments around town that I know Beacon is doing one, Oppiden's doing another. There's the Welcome Center one up in North Durham. So there's a lot of new industrial that's coming online right now. So I think depending on how that fills up will be a good litmus test to see how excited people are on the industrial market in the Greater Triangle area. So that's kind of comment on the industrial market.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think North Carolina, we have a target on us, right? Like everybody's coming to this market because they see the success that North Carolina has had. I think for all the post-COVID projections for rebounding, right, after the impacts of COVID, North Carolina has exceeded every single projection. At least that's what we've heard. I think good. Yeah, it's a good thing. So I think everybody around the world is, and definitely in this country, is looking at North Carolina and saying, let's move our office, our product, our businesses here, which is great for us. So another question, given the uncertainty in this market, what advice do you have for corporate commercial real estate decision makers looking to optimize their portfolio, whether that's in North Carolina or just maybe they're a North Carolina company looking to optimize their portfolio?
I'd advise them to be curious. I think if you are someone who owns your real estate, I think it's be curious to consider all options. Or I think this is a really wonderful buying opportunity, specifically if you're a business, if you're buying property for your business, because you're going to have access to interest rates and you will more easily obtain financing than if you're an investor. So I think that would be a question to consider would be, is this a time to expand at a time when, the market is uncertain? I'm hearing a lot of noise from anywhere that you would look to receive news that it's a bad time to make decisions. I think I would encourage people to be curious to question kind of what everyone is telling them. Specifically, I would say with the noisy media and the headlines day to day of, I think the market was down 10% at the end of last week, and then it was up 4% today, and now it's only up 1%. So I think tuning out the noise and being able to focus on fundamental decision making that fits within your core values is going to is going to work out well in the long term.
Yeah. I love that you use the term noise. I think you're spot on, right? Just tune out the noise and focus on what's fundamental. And on that note, like, what trends or shifts do you anticipate in capital markets over the next 12 to 18 months? And I know that's a loaded question, but I don't know. What do you think?
They're all loaded questions in the capital markets these days. I think the one trend that I expect more of is I expect more banks will stop extending loans and they will begin to receive payoffs.
Okay.
I think this has been going on 12 to 24 months. It's been for the last 1 or 2 years. Each year, there has been headlines saying that there's a record wave of maturities incoming, and it's going to really shake up the market. And then it hasn't happened because a lot of these loan maturities have been extended. So I think there's been an administration shift with the president. There has been, I think once we make our way through this bumpiness and turbulence right now with tariffs, if there is an increased amount of consistency, then I expect that lenders will receive more payoffs, and I think that will help the cycle work itself out. I think that is a trend that I was expect to see more of.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about a lot of things, so now we're going to wind down a little bit. And you've given a ton of great advice, but I did want to ask you, if you had to give one piece of advice to any business navigating today's real estate landscape, what would that be? You've given so many nuggets already about being curious and
yeah. I think it a lot of it goes back to that Buffett quote that I shared and kind of paraphrased of being fearful or being greedy when others are fearful is kind of, there's a prevailing sentiment in the market that it's a time of uncertainty. And again, I think uncertainty breeds opportunity. So I think I would challenge yourself to kind of try to disagree with yourself and see if you can change your mind of kind of, well, here's our real estate strategy. Let's think of something that's entirely different from this and just see what it's like, to just try kind of brainstorm and consider really all options. And you don't have to act on that. You don't want to do something that's just contrarian just for the sake of being contrarian. But I think being contrarian is something to be valued in a brainstorming and decision-making process, to make sure that you can consider something from all angles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for listeners, and if they've never heard of Cushman and Wakefield and they're like, oh, I love what I've heard, I want to check out information, I want to learn more, where can they go? Or if they want to find you and reach out to you to connect, and maybe they have some opportunities, where can they reach you?
If you have made it this far in the podcast, you can text me at my cell phone number, which is 434-760-1444. That's the easiest way to get in contact with me. I will get back in touch very quickly. That's how you can get in touch with me. With Cushman Wakefield, we're a global real estate firm, so odds are, wherever you are, we have somebody who can assist you and help you with your needs. In North Carolina specifically, we have our team here in Raleigh and in Durham serving the Greater Triangle. We have a team out of Greensboro that serves the Triad, and then we have our Charlotte team as well. So we have property management services, we have brokerage services, both for acquisitions, dispositions, and then leasing. And then we have our project development services team. So if you own real estate, we're here to help you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, before I let you go, we've got our final question, and we ask this for every...
Yeah, I saw this question.
Yeah,
it's a good question.
It's a good question, right? Because I'm curious what you're going to say. You live in North Carolina. If you could see any one project be built in the state of North Carolina, and it could be any project at all, what would that be?
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some guests come on and say, I want a Chick-fil-A, or a popular answer is MLB, right? They want that Major League Baseball team.
I'm going to zig, because I live in Cary, downtown Cary, and a project that was on the ballot this past fall was the South Hills Community Center and Recreation Center. I think it was hopefully going to be a state-of-the-art sports complex to host youth sports tournaments, national-facing youth sports tournaments, amateur events. And so I think locally, I would love to see the Raleigh-Durham, Cary, Chapel Hill. I would love to see the Triangle have, I think, a state-of-the-art crown jewel youth sports complex for both youth sports and for amateur sports, like adult league sports. I think when you look around the Triangle, we have this incredible amateur sports scene via Chapel Hill, Duke, NC State. We have the Triangle Aquatic Center over in Cary, which is home to some elite swimmers. When I swim there in the mornings, I see some Olympians' names on the wall or record holders in the pool. Apparently, it's a fast pool. I've been told that. There's cricket over in Morrisville that has a really sizable attendance of people playing there and enjoying it there. So I think I would love to see that get built. I think that is, to me, living here and being here, I think that is, it feels more within the spirit of what makes our place unique. And I love the MLB. An MLB team would be great. It's not meant to disparage or say that that'd be a bad idea. But I think that'd be something that could be unique and more distinctive. And I think in line with what are the things that and the qualities that make this place special. So that's what I want to build.
Yeah, I love that. I think it would be great. It would stimulate the economy, right? I think people would be traveling here, especially with all the sports, multi-sports. Mm-hmm. So that's a great idea. I was sad to see that no longer happening. Yeah,
we'll see. I think there might still be plans to have something similar of that built, but it was obviously a setback to not have that ballot initiative passed. Yeah.
Well, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you joining us. I'm going to follow up with you. We're going to have another check-in in a few years from now.
That's the number, 2 out of 146.
That's right.
That's a safe prediction. It's got to be more than that.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
A big thank you to Brandt Berry for joining us and providing an in-depth look at the current state of capital markets. His expertise in office, industrial, retail, and flex assets offers a comprehensive perspective on the opportunities and challenges in today's commercial real estate market. To learn more about work that Brandt and his team are doing at Cushman Wakefield, visit cushmanwakefield.com. And thank you, as always, for listening to Constructing the Carolinas. Follow us on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube so you never miss an episode. You can also keep up with how Barnhill is building stronger communities by visiting Barnhill Contracting and following us on LinkedIn. This episode was produced by Walk West. I'm your host, Valerie Bono, reminding you that no matter the market conditions, the future of our state is built on one relationship at a time. Until next time.